the U.S. plans to increase the use of fighter jets in the Persian Gulf, they're also considering military options to address Russian aggression in Syrian airspace. And Mexico files a complaint about the U.S. blocking the Rio Grande. Here to discuss this, plus so much more, is our foreign affairs specialist, Lisa Daftari, who is the editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk. She joins me from Los Angeles. Lisa, welcome back to Bridge City News. Great to have you on once again.
Thank you for having me, Jeanette.
Absolutely. Okay, so Lisa, let's just dive right into this. The U.S. announced last week that it would increase the use of F-16 fighter jets in the Persian Gulf region to protect ships from being attacked by the Islamic Republic of Iran. So officials are saying that the U.S. is concerned about growing ties between certain Middle East regions. Now, it looks like the Islamic Republic has captured several oil tankers near the Straits of Hormuz in the past few days. So what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so you outlined it beautifully. So, on its face, you think, all right, the United States has every right to protect its assets in the region. And because of recent developments, we saw a lot of these oil tankers being either harassed or even in worst cases confiscated by Iran's regime. So, of course, we're going to send out fortification and to make sure that our assets are protected. Now, juxtapose this with the fact that the United States, this administration, is still after a nuclear deal to release billions of dollars to the same regime that it is now sending military reinforcements to protect itself against. So it makes no sense, right? So we are, on the one hand, trying to normalize relations with this regime. We are going to, whether on purpose or consequently, going to empower them with money, with political might, and with normalization to bring them into the global community. They will have many, many trading opportunities. The sanctions will be removed, etc. On the one hand. And on the other hand, we know that they are going after us. We know that they are exerting pressure on all the regional partners and our allies. We know that they're making threats against our biggest ally, Israel, in the region. We know that they are supporting terror organizations and proxies in the region, in Syria and Iraq, Lebanon, in Gaza, and the list goes on. So make it make sense, right, Jeanette? So it's very, very interesting to see this development today, but at the same time know that the White House policy on Iran's regime is something totally different, and they have been pursuing that line.
And Lisa, not only the White House, but the Pentagon is also saying that the U.S. is considering several military options to address increasing Russian aggression in Syrian airspace.
Right. So it goes hand in hand, right? So inside Syria, we have the Iran regime as well as Russia working together. And they have decided, and the Foreign Desk reported on this several times, but this is now the latest development, that they've decided together that they want to boot the United States from Syria. They want to get rid of any American influence inside the country. And of course, we have diminished our presence there, but at the same time, having a certain presence there prevents them from really taking over the region and using it as a launching pad for different terror organizations, not just ISIS. I mean, in the last 10 years, we've been calling ISIS the boogeyman of the Middle East, but not really focusing on Iran's activities. The Iranian regime is supporting a majority of terror groups and organizations throughout the globe, especially the ones that the U.S. and the West should be concerned about. So, of course, here in Syria, we have Russia and Iran's regime working together, and in many other instances, Russia, Iran, and China working together as a trifecta now to combat any pressure that they feel from the West.
Now, what's important to note here, Lisa, also is that the U.S. forces in Syria participate in a multinational campaign against the Islamic State under authority granted by Congress back in 2001. So it's significant that they're there, right?
Absolutely. It's significant that they're there, and it's significant that we, as in the West, spearheaded by the United States, have lost that foothold in the Middle East. So whether you look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan that left, obviously, this country up for grabs, the Taliban promising the United States that they're going to be a new face and a new and improved Taliban, they are worse than ever. They have not allowed women to go to school. They have not allowed women to leave their homes. They are horrific. They are housing Al-Qaeda members. We know of all of this. Then you move over to Iran's regime, spreading its tentacles in places like Iraq and Syria, in Lebanon with Hezbollah, in Yemen with the Houthis. And again, if you start connecting all the dots, they are spreading their influences. So the United States has to decide whether we're in or we're out, meaning if we are going to spend the time and resources, money, etc., human treasure in those parts of the world world, what do we want there? What kind of seat at the table do we want? And how do we want to protect our assets there? And if we're going to withdraw, well, then that's a full withdrawal. And then we have to do it appropriately and in a way in which we do not lose the gains that we have made in it, for an instance, like we did in Afghanistan. So it's exactly right. I mean, it's obviously makes sense that Russia and Iran's regime want the United States out, but it's up to the United States to show up and say, we're not going to leave and this is who we are. Or if they want to withdraw, to do it in a way that's safe and proper. And we do not lose any more people in the Middle East. I mean, it's awful. If you look at the casualties we had in the last hours of our presence in Afghanistan. It's really a shame that has to happen. So
absolutely it is. Okay, so Lisa, Republican lawmakers advanced a bill recently that would ban funding of research labs controlled by North Korea, China, and Iran. But the Democrats are criticizing this. They're saying that it puts America's national security and global health at risk. So Lisa, is there anything to this argument?
it's absurd, right, Jeanette? I mean, we all know the consequences of funding and supporting these labs that are controlled by places like China, and now add to it Iran's regime and North Korea. If they're not partners, why would we be supporting what they're doing or what kind of advancements they have in the field of health and science and medicine? Their argument makes absolutely no sense. The bill that is being put forward is saying, look, we have to put our resources where we know where the money is going. We have some sort of say, we have some sort of control, and we have some sort of diplomatic reciprocity or some sort of relationship where we can trust the other person, the other country. And in this case, obviously, that is not the case. So U.S. taxpayer money, this is where it's going.
Oh, wow. Okay, now something that hit the headlines recently was President Biden being criticized for supplying cluster bombs to Ukraine. So these weapons are very controversial, Lisa, but Russian President Vladimir Putin says Russia has a significant stockpile or a sufficient stockpile of cluster bombs and that Russia reserves the right to take reciprocal action. These are his words, if Ukraine uses these controversial weapons. But hasn't he been documented that it's already been documented that they've already used these horrible, deadly weapons, right?
Exactly. So they used them. The world was up in arms. The United States, the UN called this an act of war. And then obviously now he views it as an escalation for the United States to provide the Ukrainian side with the same weapons that they called weapons of war. Look, everyone wants this war to go away. Everyone wants this war to end in a way where there will be no more casualties, no more refugees, no more damage. And of course here in the West, we're like, enough is enough. I mean, how much can we give? How many billions of dollars, how much military aid can we give without, sucking ourselves dry and putting it, frankly, in a war that doesn't look like it's going to have any good ending for either side, really, at this point. But because it's not ending, I mean, is escalation really the solution? And that's why a lot of people are criticizing the White House's decision to provide these bombs to the Ukrainians. But this has been marching on and it's been going on for over a year since last February. And there doesn't look like there's any end in sight, unfortunately. And here we have yet another escalation.
Yeah, and Lisa, keeping on the same topic here. So the U.S.'s commitment to NATO is potentially up for debate now. So there's some animosity on the American side as U.S. has given roughly twice as much military aid to Ukraine in the first year of Russia's invasion than the European Union countries have. So Trump has said that in the past, NATO has not treated the U.S. fairly. So what do you think? Do you think that the U.S. would actually remove themselves from NATO?
Well, not under this administration. It's funny because Trump, love him or hate him, he actually campaigned even before he had any aspirations of becoming president of the United States. He would always criticize the United States' participation in these acronymed organizations that were nothing more than acronyms. That he would actually say that they were good for nothing and that they were taking advantage of the United States because they weren't paying their share, if you recall. And he criticized many of these bodies and organizations like the UN, like NATO, and actually pulled out of some of them because of, again, wanting to protect the United States and where our money goes. So the debate surfaces from time to time because it's a fact. The United States is paying way more than other participants, and they get to have the same benefits and the same protections as the United States gets as being a part of these bodies. So then again, like we're questioning it now, I mean, what is the purpose? How can we demand more from other countries, or how can the United States either pull out or participate less while making it more fair? And that's really the debate that's going on right now.
Yeah. Okay. Turning it more closer to your area of the world there, Lisa, officials from Mexico have filed a complaint to the U.S. government regarding the buoy barrier installed by Texas along the Rio Grande. So they say it violates international treaties, but Texas Governor Greg Abbott says that the barrier was installed to prevent illegal border crossings. So will the Biden administration do anything to address this complaint? What do you think?
It's interesting because you would think, our border and what we deem national security, we really at our southern border, and now, as you know, at our northern border that we share with you guys in Canada, should be a nonpartisan, federal issue, something that the United States agrees that has to be protected and protected in a way that protects the entire homeland. Particularly the states that border these areas, both at the north and the south. What has happened is that over the last few years, the number of migrants that have been able to come through has really astounded many of these states that are on the border, and they have not been able to support them or absorb them. So they have come up with their own ways of doing that and protecting their borders. And here, in the case of Texas, that they have put up this buoy to create a boundary, to create some sort of safeguard. And now here you go. Mexico is up in arms about it. Now, what will the Biden administration do? It's really, it's a question of whether or not they understand, and I think they do, even though they try to tell us that the border is safe and it's wonderful and everything is great down there. What we're hearing from specific border patrol agents, a lot of them resigning, they're having a difficult time recruiting. What you're hearing from them directly is something very, very different. It really shows and paints the reality of the picture of what's going on there day in and day out.
Oh, yeah, it totally does. And Lisa, speaking on the topic here, so a top Biden immigration official has called for the abolishment of ICE, or the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the end of the detention of illegal immigrants. And of course, so this is while hundreds of migrants, mostly from Venezuela, now have recently crossed from Guatemala into southern Mexico. They're now headed to the U.S. border. So is this really the time to end this type of border security?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like who would hold office and hold this kind of ideology to not want to have just enforcement, right? Look, I am the child of immigrants. I am very much pro-immigration, but I am pro-legal immigration. It helps people on both sides. If you think it's a humanitarian cause to have families, to have women raped on the way over here, to have them drown on the way over here, to have them being taken advantage of by coyotes and others, if you think that's humanitarian, I have news for you. You have to watch the footage from the border. A. B, the number of bad guys getting through. I know there are a lot of good people trying to get through. They're trying to give their families and themselves a better life. There are a lot of bad people getting through as well. They're taking advantage of the situation. There have been dozens of people that have been found on the FBI's terror list in the last couple of years. There are Chinese nationals coming through. There are Afghani nationals coming through. There are Syrian nationals coming through because they're taking advantage of a porous border and lawlessness at our southern border. And that's a fact. And I understand, again, that there are many, many, many well-intentioned people down there, but that's what legal immigration is for. And they should get every opportunity to apply and to come over to this country. Now, to have somebody in office who wants to abolish this is like what we have here in Los Angeles with, no bail, no consequences. That's why crime is on the rise. I mean, 2 + 2 = 4. You have to understand that these policies are in place, not because we want to be bad, not because we want to be rigid, but because we have to create safeguards for our society and our communities. And that's exactly what is needed at our southern border to keep both sides safe, the people wanting to get in and those who are inside the homeland as well.
We're almost out of time here, Lisa, but real quick, 2024 seems to be be the year of elections. So in addition to the US, Venezuela's presidential elections will be held that year. And the Venezuelan Congress has now reversed its earlier pledge to allow election observers from the EU to participate. So what could this mean for elections going forward?
We know exactly what this means. We're going to have obviously a clear win for Maduro and his government. This is no surprise, right? They thought they would have people come in and observe the election to call it a free and fair election, and now they kind of rescinded that offer. So what could that possibly mean? That there will be cheating, that it won't be a free and fair election. But what we do know is that the future of Venezuela is very bleak because of this corruption, because of this fraud, and it continues. And this story is just another example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're out of time here, but Lisa Daftari of the Foreign Desk, thanks so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jeanette.